good morning to everyone, and I would like to thank the organizers for their kind invitation. I will try to speak to you about experience because I come from a think tank or a non-governmental organization from Bosnia and Herzegovina that is trying to push the government and the society towards reforming itself, which sometimes or very often in countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina is very hard to push because politicians and the administration is not that keen to reform itself. So I will not talk to you about Belarus because I'm not an expert for Belarus. I will just try to give you, to tell you a story of what we did, what we tried to do in Bosnia and Herzegovina, maybe to serve as an example of how to do or how not to do in Belarus. That I leave up to you. As I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, I usually start my presentations by explaining where Bosnia and Herzegovina is, because many people are not aware. And I intentionally used this map because it shows the map of the European Union being colored in green, and the orange one is Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it is in the southeast of Europe and surrounded by the European Union. The second thing, or the second question I like to answer is, what does the average citizen of the world know about Bosnia and Herzegovina? Or what we in Bosnia would like to think that everyone in the world knows about us. It's actually 4 pictures. First, left up, is a photo of Sarajevo, which is very often in the world talked about as Jerusalem of Europe, because we have high portion of citizens who are Muslims, very high number of them, of those who are Orthodox Christians, high portion of Roman Catholic Christians, and very huge number of Jews. And as you can see in this photo, which is often used in international media, it is the photo where you can see both the mosque, 2 types of churches, and the synagogue. The second picture on the right is the picture of Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. It's from 1914. It's the place where the First World War started when the Austrian-Hungarian Archduke was shot down. The third picture is the picture from the Winter Olympic Games in 1984, which were kind of a sign of decline of the communist Europe, because it was the first smaller communist or East Bloc country that held Olympic Games, and it was a sign of opening of the East. And the fourth picture is the picture from the war of the 90s. It's the picture from Srebrenica, where the worst atrocities or the genocide occurred 20 years ago next month, where 8,000 people were killed within 48 hours just because their name was different and because they believed in a different God. And since recently, I hope you all are aware of our football team, which made it last year to the World Cup. And maybe you've noticed in the world headlines that last month we had a visit of Pope Francis, who said that he came to Sarajevo as a visit of European Jerusalem. And that's the tourist part. I would like to start by saying what the world headlines say about Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is quite important for you to understand how my country is perceived by the outside world, and I would like to explain to you what does that for civic sector mean, and what do we try to do in order to change this. All these quotes are about Bosnia and Herzegovina, and are quotes from the world's leading newspapers, world leading opinion makers, international organizations. They claim, or they say, that Bosnia is the isolated island of Europe, that we are a European apartheid because some people in our country cannot be voted to certain positions. We are often portrayed as the poorest European country, and as a European country with one of the fastest shrinking populations. In 1991 we had 4.3 million people, and today we have around 3.5 million people. And the last quote is that Bosnia is the most complex European country. Because of the 1990s war, we had a peace agreement that included a new constitution for the country, which includes basically 1,200 blocking mechanisms for each group, even the smallest group, to prevent any changes, so also reforms. And what we in the ESI, or we asked ourselves a question, or I ask you also a question: would you want to invest your money in such a country? And to the young people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which are leaving the country in huge numbers, some are also coming back as I did. The question is, do you want to come back home to such country that is often portrayed and quoted like that? And what do we in the civic sector, or people in Bosnia, what is it that we need to do? I want just, and we try to link that to different global rankings. Because if you deal with the countries such as Bosnia and Herzegovina, that is considered the most isolated place in the world, then the question is, do Bosnians care about the global rankings? Do we care at which position we are in competitiveness index, or doing business, or any other? Do politicians in our country care where Bosnia is on this position? I want to briefly mention, for those who do not know, I don't want to talk too much about that, but Bosnia and Herzegovina is considered by the European Union as a potential candidate, as a potential member state. So that means that we in the perspective of 10 to 15 years, we can count on becoming a full member of the European Union. That is very often quoted and very often repeated, such as in the August last year when German Chancellor said that they actually want the Western Balkans to become part of the EU as soon as possible. So, but the question is, when we talk about also Bosnia, this is another interesting ranking. It's done by Eurostat, and it shows the GDP per capita in the European Union countries and in the countries that have a perspective of joining the EU. So Belarus is not included in this ranking, but it shows the EU average is 100%. That's how they do GDP per capita. And then they show which country has, a GDP per capita of that 100%. And Bosnia and Herzegovina currently has 28% of the average of the EU GDP per capita, which shows that the economic situation in the country is very bad. And it also shows that we are the worst of all the EU countries and of all the countries that could have a potential of joining the EU, and that we probably have to do something about that. And I want to just briefly show what happened to the countries that from 2001 joined the European Union. You can see the increase that they've made. For example, Lithuania went in 2001 from 42% of the average GDP of the EU. They've increased their GDP per capita as much as, even more than Bosnia and Herzegovina actually has it today. So in that sense, for us, it's very important to see this, because it's a sign that if we really go into reforms and go into the process of joining the EU, we could expect the same or similar pattern of increasing the GDP per capita. And the question we asked ourselves is, can global rankings help? Can they help us steer the reforms? Can they help us push the governments to do reforms? And as you already mentioned, there are so many rankings. Some are good, some are bad, some are useful, some are even more misleading than helpful. So our answer is sometimes, and we decided, I wanted to show you briefly a global competitiveness index. So Bosnia is on place 87, and if I understood, Belarus is 63, or projection is 63, so you are much better than we are at this point. But I don't want to focus on global competitiveness index, because as you can see, Bosnia is better than Moldova, better than Greece, better than Albania, and better than Serbia. These are all European countries. What we wanted to focus on doing business, because it's striking. Bosnia is the worst in Europe in doing business. We are on a position 107. I will not go into detail because you already spoken about doing business, but what we wanted to choose the ranking that is very striking for everyone who looks at it. So we are worse than Lebanon. We are worse than Ukraine, which is currently in the situation as it is. We are worse than Kosovo, which is not even recognized by all countries in the world. We are worse than Saudi Arabia. And at the same time, we wanted to show countries like Macedonia and Georgia, which are doing quite good. Georgia is 15th, only one place behind Germany. And Macedonia is 30th, which is one place better than France. So we wanted to use this ranking to try to push the government for reforms. So what we did, we wrote a piece that basically outlines 14 measures that Bosnia and Herzegovina government needs to do in order to improve the ranking of Bosnia in doing business. And we have written a letter to members of the Bosnian presidency, which is the head of the state. We have 3 presidents, telling them, asking them to try to deal with this issue. I will not go into details because I'm sure that it's not that interesting, but what we wanted to show is that the Western Balkan average is 60. That means the countries that want to join the EU but that are surrounding us, and that we are on 107th place, and all our measures that we propose would bring Bosnia around 60th place within 1 to 2 years. That's how long it was needed to do that. We also said that in due time Bosnia can also catch up with the EU average when it comes to doing business. And this is basically playing around rankings, because the measures, I mean, we showed that, for example, in enforcing contracts and resolving insolvency, Bosnia is doing very well. But when you go out and ask businesses or people in the streets, they will tell you that we are horrible in enforcing contracts because the judiciary system is not that efficient, it's not working. We are very bad in resolving insolvency. Many companies are there that are just working and producing only losses, and they are basically state-owned. So what it also shows that these rankings are very often done very poorly, which means that basically the reforms that the country needs to do in order to become better in this are actually not the profound reforms. It can be profound reforms if the governments understand that as that, but it can also be a bit plain. That's what some countries brings up in the first 20 of things. So I will just give you one example. We said Bosnia needs to focus on dealing with construction permits because we are 141st in that out of 180 countries. And we said, you know, we looked at, the World Bank looks at the 3 things: number of procedures, numbers of days needed to do the procedures, and the cost of these procedures. That's what they do. And the only thing they look is a warehouse of 1,300 square meters. So what we said to the government is basically, you need to cut number of the procedures for a warehouse of 1,300 square meters. You don't have to do it for any other business. All you need to do is for bigger than 1,000 square meters. And you know, we listed 15, I mean the World Bank lists 15 procedures that are needed. You need to combine 2 or 3. You don't even have to change that much. You just need to combine. For example, if you have 3 procedures in the same institution, then bring one, just come and give one with 3 different, you know, because they count, if you have 3 different papers and you have to bring them to 3 different offices in one building, then it's 3 procedures. So what we said, if it's the same building, then put the person in front of the building to take all 3 at one time, all 3 papers. So basically, it means then less, then instead of 3, it means 1 procedure for the World Bank. So that's what we suggested, in saying, basically playing around with the ranking. And as I said, resolving insolvency, we said Bosnia and Herzegovina is doing extremely well. We are better than Malta, Lithuania, we are better than Greece, Slovenia, than Bulgaria, than many of the European Union countries. So in resolving insolvency, we don't have to do anything. But as I said, if you knew a bit more about Bosnian situation, you would know that resolving insolvencies is a huge challenge and a huge problem for businesses. And then at the end, we've combined 14 measures that we've said needed to be done in order to bring Bosnia to the Western Balkan average, which is around 60, and later to the EU average. And we've published it. We sent it to media, we sent it to people, and the result was very good because, you know, people like 14 measures, people like simple things, people like, you know, we could doing business. When you translate it, I'm sure also in Belarusian, it sounds very good, you know, you can be the world's top in you know, we called our paper Bosnia as a wunderkind in doing business. And when you translate it in Bosnian, Serbian and Croatian language, it sounds very good, you know, wunderkind in doing business. And our result was, we've hit the headlines of the major Bosnian newspapers. The media discussed it, the media debated, and we, in a certain extent, we've pushed the debate and the narrative in the direction in which we wanted it to go. And the result is also, another result is, I don't want to go into details, but the EU is preparing a set of socio-economic reforms for Bosnia with the Bosnian government. And our 14 measures are included in the reform agenda for Bosnia-Herzegovina in next 12 to 18 months, or at least partly. Let's not say that it's everything, and we're still not sure how well the agenda will be written. But what we hear is that doing business will definitely also be part of this. But the main question that we now want to ask after doing this is, will improve the doing business ranking help unlock economic potential of the country, and will it ease social challenges? The photos that you can see is the photo from February 2014, when we had a huge riots and very violent protests, when the citizens went out to the street and basically set on fire governmental buildings, because we are a federal state, so we have a lot of federal units. So in almost all federal units, the people went out to the streets and basically burned the governments down, because their problem is economic, their problem is social, because of the low pensions, low perspectives and things like that. And the governments were focused on issues such as constitutional reforms, such as, not the things that are important for citizens. So the thing that we want to now ask is, can we push the reforms to go even more deeper in the using the same logic, or using the same way that we've tried to do that? And that's also something we wrote in our letter to the members of the presidency. We said, we can advise you how to improve the ranking, but we cannot help. This will not actually lead to any more of jobs and investments, because it looks good to be very well placed on doing business, but the countries that are doing well in doing business did not improve their investments because of doing business. But it's a sign from a country that is considered to be an isolated island. It is a sign that the government wants to improve how it's perceived in the outside world. And just last 4 things that I wanted to say. So what we are trying now to do is to push the reforms to unlock economic potential of the country. It means to have strategies, for example, in energy sector. We are using only 1/3 of our energy potential, and we are the richest of the energy source country in the southeastern Europe when it comes to not used energy potential. So we are trying to push to see whether we can develop strategies, whether we can develop things that could lead to that. Or when it comes to manufacturing, we have a century-long tradition of wood industry and wood-related industry things, and the textile industry. And the situation now is very bad. So we want to see if the government can really focus on these issues and try to change policies, try to make them more suitable for including manufacturing and wood industry in the cycle of production in Europe and wider in global. We also, another potential is infrastructural projects, and I don't want to bother you anymore. Our last potential is tourism. That is also good for opening up the country, because we have an increase of 10% in tourism every year, around 10%. And it's good to have foreigners coming to your country. It's also good for people inside the country to see foreigners meet and exchange with them, but it's also good for economy. Yes, and that's